The marble halls of the U.S. Capitol were buzzing with tension. Cameras were being rigged up, reporters were scrambling to secure front-row seats, and social media was already ablaze with hashtags like hashtag Pelosi versus Jordan and hashtag Congress Clash. It was not just another congressional hearing. It was set to be one of the most explosive political confrontations in modern American history. At the center of this unfolding drama were two political titans. Jim Jordan, the fiery, no-nonsense Republican from Ohio's 4th District, known for his razor-sharp interrogations and relentless pursuit of accountability. And Nancy Pelosi, the seasoned Democrat from California's 11th District, former Speaker of the House, and a formidable figure in American politics for over 3 decades. The hearing had been called by the newly formed Select Committee on Government Overreach, with bipartisan backing but very little bipartisan unity. The focus: alleged misuses of federal emergency powers during the last 3 administrations. But insiders knew the real tension stemmed from recent leaks that implicated several powerful players, including Pelosi, in controversial pandemic-era financial directives and opaque funding channels. As the gavel slammed, signaling the beginning of the session, the atmosphere thickened. Jim Jordan leaned into his microphone, face stern, voice calm but sharp like a sword freshly pulled from its sheath. "Madam Pelosi," he began, "you have served in this chamber longer than some of our youngest members have been alive. You've held the gavel. You've shaped laws. But today you are here not as speaker, but as a witness. And the American people deserve answers." Pelosi, dressed in a crisp pastel suit, adjusted her glasses and offered a tight smile. "Congressman Jordan, I am more than happy to answer any serious questions. Let's just hope you're not here to grandstand for your next Fox News appearance." There were chuckles in the room, mostly from the left side. Jordan didn't flinch. "I'd prefer to speak for the 750,000 people in my district who watched their businesses close while certain congressional offices, including yours, quietly pushed millions of dollars through unexplained emergency authorizations." A hush fell. Pelosi's smile wavered just slightly. "Are you suggesting I personally benefited from those funds?" She replied. "I'm not suggesting," Jordan replied, lifting a stack of documents. "I'm showing." He slapped down a binder labeled Emergency Allocation Ledger, Internal Memo March 2021. Staffers handed copies to the committee. C-SPAN zoomed in on the header, and online chat rooms exploded. "This ledger," Jordan continued, "tracks a $12.7 million allocation that was moved through the Office of the Speaker's discretionary fund under Communications Infrastructure Enhancement. Yet we found no corresponding project completed, no invoices filed, no oversight reports submitted." Pelosi leaned forward. "That was during a crisis. Broad discretion was necessary to ensure remote communications for congressional staff." Jordan cut her off. "And yet, the majority of that sum was funneled to a shell consultancy registered in Delaware 6 days before the funds were released. A consultancy that, by the way, had never operated prior to that week and has since dissolved." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Pelosi's aides began whispering frantically behind her. Jordan pressed on. "Madam Pelosi, either you didn't know where that money went, which is negligence, or you did, which is corruption." Boom. The room erupted. Some committee members pounded their desks in disbelief, others leaned back, stunned. Even the usually calm ranking member, Representative Louise Grant, blinked in disbelief. Pelosi raised her hand to respond. "That consultancy was hired through standard emergency protocols. I'll be happy to provide documentation that shows everything was within legal bounds." "Then let's make it public," Jordan said, rising. "Right now. Let the American people see how their money was spent. No more closed-door protections. No more behind-the-curtain transactions." Pelosi's composed mask cracked. "If you want transparency, Congressman, perhaps we should examine your voting record on emergency aid, where you consistently blocked bipartisan funding while your state begged for resources." Jordan smiled, almost like he was expecting it. "I'll defend my record any day," he said, "because I stood for accountability. What we're doing here today is holding you to the same." The gavel slammed again. "To be continued," whispered a reporter under her breath. Because this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The hearing recessed briefly after Jim Jordan's explosive first round of questioning. Outside the chamber, the media was in a frenzy. Every major network had switched to live coverage. Anchors spoke breathlessly about the implications of the $12.7 million ledger. On social media, the hashtags #Pelosi hearings and #JordanGrillsNancy were trending globally. Inside a quiet antechamber, Nancy Pelosi huddled with her top advisors. Her calm demeanor was beginning to waver. "This is political theater," she whispered sharply. "But if he has more, we need to know what else he's holding." Meanwhile, Jordan was prepping for round 2. He wasn't done, far from it. His staffer handed him a sealed manila envelope. "This just came in," the aide said. "From a whistleblower." Jordan opened it. Inside was a signed affidavit, typed, notarized, and stamped. The whistleblower was a mid-level compliance officer formerly employed under the House Oversight Administration. And what the statement detailed was damning. At 2:30 p.m. sharp, the committee reconvened. Jordan wasted no time. "Before we continue with Madam Pelosi's testimony," he said, standing again, "I'd like to enter into the record a new statement. It comes from someone who worked directly under the Speaker's administrative oversight during the 2021 emergency appropriations cycle." Pelosi narrowed her eyes. "Objection," said a Democratic committee member. "We haven't verified the authenticity. It's been notarized, reviewed by legal counsel, and cleared for submission by the clerk's office," Jordan snapped back. He held it up. The whistleblower alleges that multiple staffers were pressured to backdate invoices and create plausible contracts for a firm that did not exist prior to the March 2021 funding round. He let the words hang in the air. Pelosi spoke up quickly. "Congressman Jordan, it's highly irresponsible to present anonymous allegations in this forum. Anyone can fabricate a document." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "It's not anonymous." He read the name aloud, Eleanor R. Hastings. Pelosi blinked. Eleanor had been on her payroll. "She was terminated," Pelosi said coolly. "For cause." "Interesting timing," Jordan replied, considering she was let go just 2 weeks after raising concerns internally about financial inconsistencies. A Democratic representative tried to interject, but Jordan pushed forward. "Let's get to the heart of it. In this affidavit, Ms. Hastings details that during a March 24, 2021 meeting, a senior staffer said, and I quote, 'We need to tidy the paper trail. Just a few made-up invoices, then we're clean.'" Pelosi sat in silence. "And who chaired that meeting?" Jordan asked. More silence. "The whistleblower claims it was you, Madam Speaker." The room fell into chaos. Reporters scrambled to tweet. Aides ran in and out of the room whispering updates to committee members. The hearing had officially crossed from heated oversight to full-blown scandal territory. But Jordan wasn't done. He leaned in again. "This isn't just about political point scoring. This is about trust. The American people trusted this institution in a time of crisis. If we, as elected officials, abused the trust, then we must be held accountable." Pelosi finally spoke, her voice a notch higher than usual. "Mr. Jordan, are you implying that in the middle of a global pandemic, I, who fought for vaccines, for relief, for aid, deliberately created a financial smokescreen for personal or political gain?" "I'm not implying," Jordan said. "I'm presenting facts." Pelosi sat back, steely-eyed. "Then you better bring more than a disgruntled ex-employee and a spreadsheet." Jordan smiled. "Don't worry. I will." The committee chair called for a short recess. But even before the gavel fell, Pelosi was already whispering frantically to her legal counsel. Outside, protesters had gathered. Some held signs saying, "Investigate Pelosi," while others shouted, "Political witch hunt." The divide was clear. But what wasn't clear was what came next. Inside the Capitol, the storm was just beginning. As the second recess wrapped up, the hearing room was now packed with additional observers. Even a few senators had wandered in to catch a glimpse of the political fireworks. The air was electric, like the calm before a thunderstorm. Jim Jordan returned to his seat with a determined expression. His sleeves were rolled up now, and he looked like a prizefighter ready for the final rounds. Nancy Pelosi, by contrast, appeared composed, but her confidence was wearing thinner by the minute. The chair called the committee back into session. "Congressman Jordan," the chair said, "you may proceed with your next line of questioning." Jordan didn't hesitate. "Madam Pelosi," he began, his voice slow and deliberate, "your defense seems to hinge on the idea that these financial movements were standard protocol, and that the whistleblower was simply a disgruntled employee." Pelosi nodded slowly. "Correct. And I'm not the only one who authorized emergency funding. If you're interested in transparency, you'd widen the scope." Jordan leaned forward. "Well, I did." He tapped a folder in front of him. This contains internal communications, emails, and message transcripts from the House Technology Services Division. He opened it, pulled out a page, and held it up. In one of these emails, dated March 26, 2021, 2 days after the suspicious contract was signed, a message was sent from your chief of staff to the compliance team. It read, "We need to get the wire through before COB. Don't ask questions. Speaker's orders." Gasps once again filled the room. Pelosi's eyes darted across the chamber. "Out of context," she said. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Is it? Because we subpoenaed the server logs. The timestamp on that wire transfer aligns exactly with a payment made to the now-defunct Delaware consultancy. Same day, same hour." Pelosi's voice was sharper now. "That's a massive oversimplification of the process. You're cherry-picking lines from emails to paint a narrative." Jordan gave a sly smile. "Then let's talk about the bank account." He pulled out another document. This committee, under lawful authority, obtained the records of the firm in question. The receiving account was traced to a private trust, created in the Cayman Islands 6 days prior to the contract being signed. The room was dead silent. Jordan stared directly at Pelosi. "And one of the beneficiaries listed in that trust is a family member of yours." The silence broke instantly. Shouting erupted. Chairs scraped as journalists rushed out of the chamber to report. Pelosi's lips parted, but no words came out. "Your nephew, Daniel Christopher Pelosi," Jordan continued, "listed as a secondary beneficiary. The trust was set up by a law firm in the Virgin Islands, the same firm that has managed finances for several high-profile political donors and PACs connected to your previous campaigns." Pelosi looked shell-shocked. That's not my responsibility," she stammered. "I don't manage my nephew's finances." Jordan wasn't buying it. "Madam Speaker, with all due respect, that trust received over $8 million in federal funds meant for emergency infrastructure, and all we have to justify it is a single invoice and a pile of excuses." Another member tried to interrupt, but the chair allowed Jordan to finish. "I've been in this institution long enough to know when someone's stonewalling. You had the power, the position, and the proximity. What we're uncovering is not just a lapse in judgment, it may very well be a federal crime." Pelosi sat stiffly, her hands clasped, her face pale. "I want my counsel to respond to this line of questioning," she said. Jordan sat down, his job for the day done for now. But the room was transformed. What started as political theater had turned into a potential criminal investigation. Across the chamber, members were whispering to each other in disbelief. Cameras continued rolling. Reporters rushed to prepare breaking news alerts. Outside, protesters screamed louder. And Nancy Pelosi, once the most powerful woman in Congress, now found herself at the heart of the largest financial scandal to rock Capitol Hill in decades. The next 48 hours after the hearing were a political earthquake. Major news outlets ran continuous coverage. Pelosi implicated in secret trust scandal, one Sharon screamed. Conservative networks called for an immediate ethics investigation. Liberal ones urged restraint, but even they couldn't ignore the weight of the evidence laid out by Jim Jordan. Behind closed doors, chaos reigned. The Democratic caucus was split, some rallied around Pelosi, others were already beginning to distance themselves. One anonymous congresswoman told a reporter, "If even half of what Jordan presented is true, we've got a serious problem." In Pelosi's office, tension was suffocating. Her top aides scrambled to contain the damage. Press releases were drafted and redrafted. A press conference was scheduled, then canceled. Her attorney released a vague statement denying all false and misleading allegations. Meanwhile, Jim Jordan was being hailed as a hero by his supporters. He appeared on Tucker Carlson's show and didn't hold back. "This is about accountability," Jordan said. "We've got families across this country who lost everything during the pandemic, and while they were hurting, Speaker Pelosi was allegedly funneling money to shady trusts overseas. No way we're letting that slide." But it wasn't just Jordan who was fed up. There was growing bipartisan frustration about corruption and backroom deals. Enter Congressman Jason Mendoza, a young moderate Democrat from Arizona, charismatic, popular on both sides of the aisle, and known for calling out corruption no matter where it came from. On Friday morning, Mendoza stunned Washington by holding his own press conference on the Capitol steps. "I didn't come to Washington to play games," Mendoza said. "I came here to serve the people. And right now, they're watching us. If we don't take this seriously, if we don't pursue the truth wherever it leads, then we are all complicit." He then dropped the bombshell. He would co-sponsor a bipartisan resolution to form a special investigatory panel independent of both parties to probe the emergency fund scandal. And guess who was the proposed chair? Jim Jordan. Reporters erupted in questions. Congressman Mendoza, aren't you betraying your party? Do you think Pelosi should resign? Mendoza didn't flinch. I think no one is above the law. That same afternoon, Pelosi gave an emergency interview on MSNBC. Her voice was controlled, but tension laced every word. This is an orchestrated smear campaign, she said. Congressman Jordan is using innuendo and weaponized documents to damage my reputation and distract from real legislative work. But even as she spoke, the damage was deepening. Polls showed her approval rating plummeting, and her own caucus members were publicly calling for a full and fair investigation. Jordan, meanwhile, took a quieter approach. He didn't gloat. He didn't take victory laps. Instead, he called for calm. We're not here to destroy careers, he said at a small-town event in Ohio. We're here to protect democracy. If there's no wrongdoing, then the evidence will show it. But if there is, then we owe it to the American people to take action. But just when it looked like Jordan and Mendoza's bipartisan panel was gaining steam, a secret memo leaked to the press, and this one changed everything. It came from a financial analyst at the Government Accountability Office. The memo confirmed that not only did the shady Delaware firm receive funds, but it also issued subcontracts to multiple shell companies traced back to a PAC linked to the Pelosi family. The memo was only meant for internal circulation. But once it was leaked, it lit a firestorm no one could control. Pelosi's attorney demanded a DOJ investigation, claiming the memo was politically timed and deliberately misleading. But by then, the narrative had shifted. This wasn't just political rivalry anymore. This was war. And Jim Jordan had gone from committee bulldog to the tip of the spear in one of the most consequential investigations in recent congressional history. 1 week after the hearing, Washington, D.C. was a city on edge. Protests were now a daily occurrence outside the Capitol. Some carried signs that read, "Clean house now." Others shouted, "This is a witch hunt." The country was watching red states, blue states, independents, all glued to their screens. And then came the day. The Special Oversight Panel, chaired by Jim Jordan and co-led by Democrat Jason Mendoza, held its first formal session. The hearing was set in the Grand Congressional Chamber, not the usual committee room, a deliberate move to signify the seriousness of the matter. The gallery was packed. Senators, former presidents, foreign diplomats, and thousands of viewers watching live on C-SPAN and social media. Hashtag Jordan versus Pelosi was the #1 trend in the country. Even late-night hosts were calling it the Congressional showdown of the century. As the hearing began, Jim Jordan entered calmly holding a thick binder. He wasn't his usual aggressive self. Instead, he looked like a man burdened by truth. Jason Mendoza nodded at him respectfully as the gavel dropped. Today, Mendoza said, we examined serious allegations regarding the misuse of federal emergency funds by former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and associated entities. Pelosi, flanked by high-powered attorneys, sat across the chamber. Her face was composed, but her eyes scanned the room like a chess master analyzing every move. Jordan began. Madam Speaker, I want to present the panel with one final piece of evidence. He lifted the binder. This document came to us via a whistleblower, the former CFO of Delaware Infrastructure Solutions, the front company that received the original emergency contract. He's here today under federal protection. Gasps filled the chamber. No one knew a whistleblower had flipped. Jordan continued. His name is Elliot Barnes, and he provided sworn testimony verified by federal authorities stating that he was ordered to create fraudulent invoices to launder funds into a PAC called AmeriPro Tomorrow. Jordan paused. That PAC donated $3.2 million to a super PAC that exclusively supported the campaigns of Pelosi-endorsed candidates, including her nephew, Daniel C. Pelosi, who was running for a congressional seat in California at the time. Pelosi's face was now stone. But the damage was irreparable. The panel chamber was dead silent as Jordan turned the page. Here's the kicker, he said. We traced the transfer of those funds to a luxury real estate deal, an oceanfront compound in Carmel, California, purchased not in the PAC's name, but in the name of a shell LLC. The beneficial owner. He paused again. Nancy Patricia Pelosi. Boom. The explosion wasn't literal, but the shockwave in the room may as well have knocked people out of their seats. Reporters leapt to their feet. Flashbulbs lit up the chamber. Members of Congress turned to one another in disbelief. Some staffers began crying. Others stormed out. It was a political Chernobyl. Jason Mendoza took over. This evidence, if authenticated, and we have no reason to believe it isn't, indicates a direct and personal financial benefit from federal taxpayer funds during an ongoing national emergency. That is not just unethical. That is criminal. Pelosi's lawyers whispered frantically. And then, unexpectedly, Pelosi stood up. She looked at Jim Jordan. "You really think you've won, don't you?" she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You've poisoned the well of this democracy just to take me down." Jordan didn't respond. "I've served this country longer than you've been in Congress," she continued. "But you and your kind, you're willing to burn it all down for a headline." Jordan finally spoke. "No, ma'am. We're cleaning up what you tried to hide." That line echoed through the chamber like thunder. Pelosi left the hearing before it adjourned. Her face pale, her legacy in shambles. By evening, the DOJ had opened a formal investigation. By the weekend, multiple House members were calling for her resignation and possible indictment. And Jim Jordan? He didn't hold a victory rally. He didn't mock her on cable news. Instead, he spoke to his constituents in Ohio. "This isn't about parties anymore. It's about restoring faith. We can't let the powerful write their own rules. Not in this America." The crowd cheered. Nancy Pelosi's career, once the crown jewel of Democratic power, had collapsed in a storm of scandal and betrayal. And Jim Jordan? He walked out of the Capitol not as a firebrand, but as the man who pulled back the curtain and showed America the truth.